So this week in outdoor news, as I record this, REI has let go another 375 people, none of them from retail at this point. People from headquarters, people from distribution centers, people from experiences, which is where I used to work, and a handful of people from sales and customer service, which is like online phone support and stuff like that. And it's troubling to me because if you're new here, I worked for REI for 15 years. I left about 2 years ago. Love the company. They were great to me. So it's hard for me to see that company struggle and to let people that I know go, and people that I know are having hard times there. But the thing is, I've come to realize that the future of outdoor gear is not with REI. And that pains me a little to say it. Let's talk about the future. Let's go. So it's like 37 degrees out and raining, and I am just unmotivated to get into a kayak in this weather. It's the downside of not having a buddy like Johnny nearby who, like, one of us would always get the other one going. Even on days like this, we would paddle, which was super good, but the motivation to get on the roof of the van and pull the boat down is pretty low. And so let's talk about something else I am not motivated to talk about, which is the outdoor industry. Which seems like a boring concept, but is actually super important, particularly for us that live in the kayaking world, and that'll become clear in just a second. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of the companies that service us in paddling and the outdoors in general, but more specifically to paddling. So arguably the two biggest, this is arguable, it depends on whose numbers you believe, the two biggest manufacturers of paddles is Aquabound and Bending Branches, and they are the same company. They have the same parent company. Johnson Outdoors is Ocean Kayaks, is Old Town, and is also Eureka, which makes tents, and is also Jetboil. They're all the same company. Not to mention a handful of like fishing companies, and a scuba company, Scuba Pro, is Johnson Outdoors. And Johnson Outdoors is the same family of people that are SC Johnson, which is all of those like billion-dollar cleaning company. Same people, not same companies, but same people. Confluence Outdoors is Pelican, Dagger, Perception, Boardworks, stand-up paddleboard company, Advanced Elements, inflatable kayak company, Wilderness Systems, and GSI Outdoors. Those are all really the same company with different brands. Same parent company owning little companies, but they all answer to the same company. Native Watercraft merged with Bonafide Kayaks in 2019, and that includes Liquid Logic and Hurricane Kayaks. The Claris Corporation owns Black Diamond, a climbing company, climbing and skiing and stuff like that, and a company called, I think they're originally a French company called Pieps. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, P-I-E-P-S. They're an avalanche beacon company. Arguably, if I recall correctly, pretty much invented the avalanche beacon, and as well as a bunch of like hunting and ammunition companies. So those are all very big companies, and particularly the boat manufacturers, Wilderness Systems, Perception, Old Town, are the bulk of the recreational and some touring kayaks that are sold. Even Hurricane falls under there. And the reason that this is important is that those companies, in my opinion, are all, because they're owned by mega corporations, they're all serving a corporate master, for lack of a better term, and their goal is to sell boats, and they're doing very little, if any at all, innovation. We see the same boats year after year with slight tweaks and slight changes that arguably make them better. I think they really just make them different so that people are prompted to buy, oh, there's the new one, I'll get the new one. All of those brands are available with some variation at REI or other big outdoor box stores, Dick's Sporting Goods, Cabela's, Bass Pro. And I got to tell you, a decade ago, I would have not included REI in the same grouping as those other stores, but I'm starting to, and that really troubles me. We are not seeing, or are seeing very little in terms of innovative products available at REI, which is the go-to for most outdoors people. They have the same sort of, even though they're not a public company, they have to make a living, right? And they have to keep the machine going, and they have to keep opening more stores. So they have to keep selling the stuff that people want to buy. And people want to buy tents and sleeping bags and backpacks. But if you walk into an REI store, you'll see the same sleeping bags that were there probably a decade ago or something like that. When people walk into an REI store, they want to buy the North Face. And yes, I am picking on the North Face. I am using them as a proxy for any outdoor company that middle of the roaded themselves. And I'm going to do a whole video about the North Face and why I don't wear the North Face. That's coming soon. But that's what people want to buy. They want to buy the North Face. So the REI is selling the North Face. If the North Face is a Wilderness Systems kayak, or the North Face is tents or sleeping bags or whatever. Troubles me to say that, but that's the truth. And that's the past, and I'm coming to realize that that is not the future. Okay, so what is the future? So in the past 6 months, I've had the opportunity to either work with or at least have exposure to some small companies that are doing it differently. They're doing it the way we should be doing it, and they're doing it the way that I think we're going to be doing it in the future. The three companies that I dealt with were Lendl North America, Zen Bivy, and Turning Point Boat Works. And what we're seeing out of those three companies is that they're solving problems, they're innovating, they're dealing almost directly to customer or directly to customer instead of through companies like REI or Bass Pro or whoever. And they're solving problems. So Zen Bivy, with their dry bags that I got to test out, solved the how do I make a lightweight, durable bag that is easy to get the air out of, that's easy to burp. Right? And in the future, I'll be working with them. They've been nice enough to send me one of their sleep systems so I could test that out. As I've been on a number of trips with paddlers who use them and really like them, I expressed an interest in testing one out, and they were like, we'll happily send you one. So see that'll be coming in the future. Lendl, a small company that makes paddles, is paddlers making paddles for paddlers. They're not dealing with huge companies. They're selling not quite only direct to customer, but mostly direct to customer. They are available in some smaller shops. And I am getting way more, like normally my go-to would be I'll just go to REI or order it from rei.com, is I'm spending more and more time in small shops, and it's super nice. It's so much nicer. The third company that I had dealing with, I have not bought a boat from this company yet, but Turning Point Boat Works, I went to Joey's shop in Richmond and had a great time and learned about how they're making boats, and they are using advanced techniques in terms of infusion for their fiberglass, and they're also using advanced materials that no one else is using. You are not going to see a boat built the way that Turning Point builds boats out of Wilderness Systems. They can't. They don't have the customers for it, and Turning Point does. I haven't had a chance to paddle a Turning Point boat. I'd love to. I'd love to own a Turning Point boat, but they are absolutely gorgeous, super nice. Those three companies are just three companies that I've had dealings with in the past 6 months that have made me rethink what I think the outdoor industry should be looking like. And it should be looking like these little companies. It should be looking like direct to customer. Oh, as I'm talking about direct to customer, I want to talk about a friend's company. Deliberate Life Designs makes minimalist sandals. The owner of that, or one of the owners of that, is a guy named Adam, who I worked with at REI Outdoor School. He couldn't find a sandal he liked, so he started making sandals. And then a couple of other outdoor educators were like, hey, can I get a pair of those? And he started the business. He hand makes every sandal. And I want this material or this color or mismatched. I want my sandals not to match. You can do that because he can adapt the way the other companies can adapt in terms of manufacturing. And that is just super nice. I'll put links to all these companies down below. But all of these companies are solving problems. Lendl said, why are we putting rubber drip rings on a paddle to fix a problem? Why don't we just fix the paddle? And so the first thing I noticed when I picked up the paddle they sent me was it didn't have drip rings, a $400 paddle that doesn't come with drip rings. And then I was like, I'm not going to ask them about it. Let me see what this thing is like when I paddle it. And sure enough, I didn't get wet hands, with the exception, I said this in the video, paddling in a really strong crosswind with the paddle feathered, one of my hands got wet. And the guy that I talked to at Lendl was like, yeah, we're still tweaking it. So these are 3 companies that I've worked with. There are dozens and dozens more if you look for them. In backpacking, they're called cottage companies, which are companies, little tiny companies, usually operated out of someone's home to start with, if not indefinitely. And they're building individual items for people, and that gives them the ability to tweak based on real needs of the individuals. And I think this is the future. I think particularly with things like 3D printing and stuff like that, at some point, 3D printing metal or 3D printing kayaks is gonna be a thing. That is just a matter of time. And we're gonna see those products being made in people's garages or basements. And that is the future. I am positive of it. And those companies aren't thinking 2 years out, whereas REI has to be thinking 2 years out. So you're not going to see Zen Bivy products at REI. You're not going to see Lendl paddles at REI. You're not going to see Zen Bivy bags at REI. Zen Bivy might be able to do it, but they're not doing it. They don't need to do it, as far as I know. I'm surmising. That's my thoughts on the future and what this is going to look like in the future. It's only going to get more cottage, and REI is either going to have to adapt or die. It's really that simple. The world that REI has known since 1938 is changing dramatically in terms of production. And if they're going to survive, they need to make those changes as well. One last thing I'll throw out. During COVID, I worked for REI Virtual Outfitting. I was very fortunate that I got pulled into a group of amazing people, and we did video calls with folks who had questions about gear that they were buying online. And it was a great service, and they did away with it. They did away with it because it was expensive, and they couldn't really say post-COVID that it was paying for itself, which is what they said about REI Outdoor School is this really paying for itself, which it's not immediately, but those things pay for themselves down the road. And it's that forethought that REI, in my opinion, doesn't have that they need to get back. Okay, that's my 5 minutes on the future of outdoor gear. If you like this content, do me a favor, hit like, hit subscribe. And I got to get on the water soon because I can't take it anymore. I was going to go today, but yeah, just low motivation. You get on the water. I'll see you out there.